What's up guys, Lightning14 here, soaring back into everyday life with another video. In this video, talking about this, which is the HAMP that I built. This video we're going to be going over it, talking about it, and kind of talking about whether or not it really has any use in this day and age, because this is kind of an outdated blaster from a long time ago. Or is it? I don't know. We'll find out. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So what is a HAMP? A HAMP is an acronym. It stands for High Airflow Manual Plunger, and basically what that means is that there's no spring, there's no flywheels, there's no compressed air. It's just you pull back the handle and then you slam it forwards or backwards as hard as you can, and then you're manually pushing the air with this giant plunger tube out the barrel to fire the dart. So that's how a HAMP works. And so this HAMP in particular was built using Kane's guide, the original guide over on Nerf Haven, which has been around for God knows how many years. I've always wanted to build one, but I hadn't really gotten around to it until recently, and I'm very happy that I did. So it functions rather well. The way it basically works is, as I said, you have a giant plunger tube, which is this, and then you have your pump, which is a smaller piece of PVC, and then this actually has a yarn seal. So it has layers of tightly wrapped yarn around the piece of PVC, which is then just duct taped in place, and that's what actually creates your seal. It's rather unique, but it functions pretty darn well actually. It's not as airtight as a traditional like O-ring or a skirt seal, but it works fairly well for this application, which is kind of surprising. And then it also has a check valve up here, I believe that's what this is called, but it has a hole here that's covered up by this flap of craft foam, is what I'm trying to say. And what that does is that it seals it so that it seals the hole when it's pushed forward, because it's forced onto the cap so that you don't lose air power there, but it allows it to be pulled back easier when you're drawing it back. And it also makes it work with the hopper attachment for whatever reason. I can't remember exactly why I figured this out, but basically you have to have that on there if you want to run it with a hopper. If you want to just use a single barrel, then you don't need that, but it makes it work with the hopper, and I can't remember exactly why that is. But yeah, so this blaster was incredibly cheap to make. All it is really is like 2 or 3 sizes of PVC and then a couple fittings, and that's pretty much it. I think it was around like maybe $10-ish to build this thing, which is impressive considering the performance this gets. So speaking of performance, let's take a look at that. So for an approximately $10 blaster, the HAMP does actually pull some pretty impressive numbers. You can see here, the ones that do read anyways. I think we've got one more. That was an outlier. So as you can see from the video, from the chronograph testing, the HAMP is no slouch when it comes to performance. Most shots were hitting upwards of 160, with some shots almost breaking 190. When I did extensive chronograph testing with this indoors a little bit earlier, and fired around 50 shots over the chronograph, I found an average of 148 FPS. But that's also including a lot of outliers, because the HAMP is not exactly the most consistent thing when it comes to performance. And a lot of those outliers were lower than 150, and so those dropped down the performance. But with a hard pull, this thing will break 160 and almost hit 190 very, very easily. Let's talk about ease of construction. The HAMP is actually a fairly easy blaster to build. I was able to build it pretty simply and pretty easily in probably about 2 hours or so of work, less if you know what you're doing and are trying to actually get it done in a reasonable amount of time. Apologies for the neighbor who's running his lawnmower currently. So the HAMP has several advantages. It's very cheap to build, it's very simple to build, and it can hit some pretty impressive numbers for a blaster that's basically made from hardware store junk. But this does come with a couple of drawbacks, and namely those are accuracy, because you are basically slamming the plunger tube backwards when you are firing the blaster, it is by nature inaccurate. The other disadvantage is the fact that it doesn't have a huge capacity, at least compared to modern day blasters. You can throw much longer hopper clips on it than I have here, and with those you can put some pretty high capacities on them, especially if you use short darts, which it does work very well with, but that comes at the cost of having a fairly slow-ish reload time, although you can up that slightly by using swappable hopper clips. To illustrate what I mean about the accuracy testing, let's do some firing at my patio door from around, I don't know, 50 feet away. I'm going to be aiming at the glass on the patio door right there, and so that's my target. We're set up about 40-ish feet away. I'm shooting full-length AccuFace because yes, it does feed those, and it feeds them really well. So here we go. All right, here we go. We're going to do some testing with half lengths now. The interesting thing about the half lengths is that if you make your stroke long enough, it will actually shotgun like 2 or 3 of them at a time, which is pretty neat. You can see that here. Jesus Christ. That was way more power than I was expecting. Yeah, I swear that's way more powerful. I'm gonna have to do some more chronograph testing with that. I think we decapped about half those workers. Let's load in a couple more. The good thing about half lengths though is that you effectively double your capacity, which makes loading and using this blaster at least slightly more practical. There, that's 4 darts. Alright, I've got some more workers loaded up since these seem to work the best. As you can see, the accuracy is not that good, but the power is incredible. And the spread with 2 darts is very wild. The trick with the half darts is to stroke it not as far, because then you're less likely to shotgun them. One last final test. I have ramrodded 1.5 handfuls of darts down the barrel just to show you how much of a shotgun this thing can actually be if you just want to use a single barrel and load 1,000,000 darts in it. So here goes that. So yeah, that's pretty fun though. But in conclusion, is the HAMP an outdated piece of technology? Is it a blast from the past without any real place in the present? Well, from a practicality standpoint, I would have to say yes. The accuracy just really isn't there compared to other modern day blasters that hit at similar performance levels, such as a Caliburn, Talon-Claw, or even something like an upgraded Retaliator. The rate of fire is fairly good, but not anything really special when you compare it to modern day flywheelers. The capacity is also somewhat of an issue, considering you're limited to how many darts you can fit in a PVC tube. Granted, you can put on much longer tubes than I have here, but you're still limited to how many darts you can fit in a single tube. Despite all that, I do think that this is a very fun blaster to use. Something about just slamming the plunger tube back and forth repeatedly is highly entertaining. And it's also incredibly cheap and incredibly easy to build. I think I stated this earlier, but I believe the cost of total parts for this was just around $10 or so, which is insane considering the amount of power that this thing can put out. From a price to performance ratio, the HAMP really just can't be beat. And because it's so easy to build, I would definitely recommend it if you are looking to get into maybe trying to build PVC homemades but don't really know where to start. This is an excellent option. If you're used to playing with stock blasters and would like to dip your toes into something higher powered and don't really have a high budget, this would be a great place to start. Even for someone who has no experience building PVC homemades, this is still an incredibly easy blaster to build. You could easily throw this together in an afternoon or so, and then you would have yourself an incredibly high-powered blaster that will easily outperform any other stock blaster on the market right now. That's basically my thoughts on the HAMP blaster as a whole. I don't think it really compares favorably to modern blasters, but I do like it a lot and I think it's incredibly fun to use. I'm definitely bringing it to my next war to test it out and see how well it stacks up against other people's builds. I think that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, please leave those in the comments section down below. If you have any thoughts on the blaster or on PVC homemades in general. I'd love to hear them in the comments. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.